You're on a performance notice. No raise/bonus, no WFH, no OT, and no learning new responsibilities, and then COVID happens. So, I've posted a few stories about my wonderful old manager. Let's just call her Samantha. This story is about a coworker we will call Joe, and from day one it was obvious that Joe was one of the hardest working people on the team, and Samantha could not stand him. So, this is a few years into Joe's tenure with the team, and for whatever reason or another Samantha decides to put Joe on performance notice, which is basically an HR notice that you have 6 months to get your shit together, or you're fired. The reason on the paperwork: improper attitude. Joe was the type of guy to always speak his mind, and while management says they live this, brutal experience shows this is a lie. The problem with notice is it also comes with penalties. No WFH, they literally take your laptop away and bring you a thin client, no approved OT, and no learning new things or assignments. Oh, and no raise or bonus. You have to prove you do your job well, and then after the 6 months, if you're not fired, the manager can extend with an additional probation period of another 6 months. January of every year is when we find out about our raises and bonuses from the previous year, and to put it delicately, that January they ducked us, to the point that one person walked out and 2 older employees, 30 plus years, took packages. Come February, we are drowning, and Joe can't work OT and Joe can't learn new things. Manager's orders, remember? Well, this is the middle of Joe's probation period, as Samantha predictably extended his notice. So this is where we find ourselves mid-March, 2020. Cue malicious compliance. During the lockdown, they send the whole company home. Everyone is working from home, except Joe. He is home, just not working. He technically can't. And about 2 weeks into the lockdown is when Samantha finally notices she goes ballistic. Why aren't you working? Blah blah blah, on a team email with everyone CC'd. He replies, as you know, I am on coaching and cannot work from home. Tries to get HR to fire him, to which they reply, Samantha, you elected to continue the notice, which still has 4 months. We can't issue him a laptop until it expires. Turns out the only way to rectify it ASAP was to petition formally with the head of HR, that putting Joe on a performance notice was done in error and have all parties sign, including Joe. All this happens except Joe refuses to sign. He won't sign until them give him his bonus and raise, which they do. The whole thing took a month. A month of Joe basically on a free vacation. LOL. TLDR, a coworker on notice can't work from home because of company policy. And then COVID happens. Edit. Well, I didn't expect this one to blow up like this, but there have been some questions that I feel I need to add some context to. First is the work we do. It's easy. Like a stereotypical corporate job, a concerted effort of maybe 3 hours a day is enough to do your job. Most people screw around, chit-chat and milk the day. Some people go even further and milk the work so much that they need help with their workload. We have a coworker who would literally watch Netflix all day. Management either never figured it out, or didn't care. I've had days where I've done all my work before lunch and took it easy the rest, and then I've had days where I didn't do a thing all day. Incompetent management creates gray areas. As long as the work gets done, they don't look too deep into who is doing what, and people get away with minimal work, knowing others will pick up the slack. This is where Joe found himself when the pandemic started. The company, which has never had all of its employees, or even a good amount, remote at the same time, was unprepared on how to handle the situation, and our managers were even less prepared. Joe literally just found himself forgotten, and didn't raise his hand to tell anyone for a bit. LOL.
Now to the comments. I thought for a second Joe was going to just show up, be the only one at the office while everyone else was at home, and just chill because there's no one there since everyone wanted to stay at and work from home.
OP replied. Would have been awesome, but they locked up the buildings. Our badges didn't even work.
Joe seems like he would have beeped the badge all day. I think HR knew Samantha was full of it, and needed her to say it herself.
They were adding their own MC.
MC in 5.1 Dolby surround sound. That's a really good one. I got put on notice during COVID because there was a downturn in work, and to complete my hours, we are on a direct billing system to our customers. Down to the 15 minutes, expected 40h a week, I supplemented my hours by working on internal business development projects rather than direct bill. This means documentation of our processes and training material. We have a lot of document debit because no one likes to make it, so, boss puts me on notice and I'm sitting there with HR and they said I'm not doing my job. I asked them for an itemized list of my duties that I agreed to in my contract. There is no such thing. I asked for a list of responsibilities as laid out by my boss, he's never given me one. So, I said you want to fire me but can't prove to me I'm not doing my job. All you have is my billable hours not meeting a target that was set on my last review that isn't even signed by either party. Okay, give me a list of duties and responsibilities so that I can prove that I'm a good employee by your standards. So, they provide this list, which notably far exceeds the efforts of my coworkers, and I blow every metric out of the water. The follow-up HR conversation was, look at how much you improved. No, this was purely not having correct management guidance on what my job is and it never being communicated to me. I want a transfer out of the department. Well, we can't do that because you were on report. Interesting. Well, let me say this a different way. My boss has been harassing me, never defined my role, then attempted to get me fired when I didn't do things his way. Is this a formal complaint? No, this is me asking for a transfer and you not grasping the gravity of the situation. I expect this to be done in 6 months. 6 months later, my transfer is November 1st. Still their best employee in that department now that I've been given the means to measure my normal duties. 3 other staff are now leaving too, and senior management is looking really hard at the inner workings of the department. Sometimes when you play stupid games, and your employee knows their rights, you win stupid prizes. I can't stress this enough, get everything in writing, record all conversations either by hand or audio. Journal your week and what you were doing. Date it all, sign it all. Employers are out to make money off you and they will get rid of you when it suits them. They are not your friends and they do not have your best interest at heart. Protect yourself and don't be afraid to push back. Be civil and ensure you are being the reasonable one. Know your rights.
OP replied. I mean, this is worthy of a postman. Serious LOL.
LOL probably. I knew a Joe. We were in federal IT. Super good guy. Competent, professional, and hard-working. Spoke his mind. One day a few terabytes of data went missing. PHB, pointy-haired boss, blamed Joe and put him on admin leave. PHB asked Joe to bring in his laptop. Law enforcement met Joe at the door and escorted him. WTF? PHB asked for laptop. Joe said sure, after I sign a chain of custody. PHB went ballistic. Joe stood his ground. Law enforcement officer put together a chain of custody. Joe signed. A few months later another employee admits to accidentally deleting the data. PHB calls Joe and says no harm no foul. Joe, there is harm, there is foul. There was some kind of settlement but I didn't hear what it was. Joe has since moved on and up.
OP replied. Oh, that's awesome.
Joe is the hero we need today. Similar thing happened to me regarding WFH, though not as juicy as your story. We used to be able to work from home as we saw fit. Then like a month before COVID my boss said no more working from home out of the blue. The team was pretty upset. Then COVID hit and we have been working from home ever since.
OP replied. LOL, still pretty awesome. WFH was for emergencies only pre-COVID, and we were all issued laptops after the last big hurricane to ensure we could still work remote.
It's so ridiculous how most companies have been so resistant to letting people work from home, even though the plague has proven it's completely possible, and there are a lot of jobs where there's no actual reason people need to be coming in every day. I had an almost similar story for the first few paragraphs, to the point where I thought you were someone on my, thankfully old, team and talking about me. I was put on my company's version of coaching in February and we went WFH in March. There's no set timeline for the coaching, but there are goals you need to hit. One of those goals my manager set was something to do specifically with in-person communication. Well, 2 months later and I'm sure I knocked out all the goals and asked to be taken off coaching, but was told they can't take me off because of that goal hadn't been accomplished. I was livid that they wouldn't remove that as a goal in the face of a global pandemic that didn't allow me actual in-person interactions with people. It took another 3 months before I was able to be removed from coaching after fighting with HR. I was tempted to just quit, but if you quit or get fired on coaching you can't be rehired in the future, and I really liked working there and had great experiences my entire tenure except for my time with this manager. I switched teams as soon as I was able to get off coaching, and was promoted within 3 quarters and top performer on my new team every quarter. My previous manager refused to promote me despite everybody knowing I deserved it.
OP replied. LOL, you don't work in the finance industry, do you?
I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess, based on details of your story and this comment, that you work for a credit card company that starts with M.